welcome to Extra Time. I'm Rob Bonnet. Well, in many ways, the most keenly anticipated game at the current Cricket World Cup might not be the final, but this weekend's showdown between Pakistan and India in a rivalry that one former player described as somewhere between sport and war. There are about 500,000 ticket applications for the stadium in Manchester, which holds only about 25,000, but our guest today will be there, and he'll be very seriously engaged indeed. Wasim Khan is the managing director of the Pakistan Cricket Board. We know he wants Pakistan to win the cup, but what's his long-term plan for Pakistani cricket? Wasim Khan, welcome to Extra Time. Former Pakistan fast bowler Waqar Younis said of Pakistan versus India that people dub it a war. Well, it's certainly not a war, he said. At the same time, it's not just sport either. It's somewhere in between. What do you think it is?
I think that particularly the players, they always try and play it down, because I think that there's so much raw emotion running through India versus Pakistan. If you take it in the context of the history and what's gone on, that there's so many facets at play here, and because the health of a nation a lot of the time is judged by how well India are performing or how well Pakistan are performing, it does mean a lot more to many people. So I think the players have a responsibility just to try and keep it at sport as much as possible.
I'm going to throw another quote at you. It's from Kapil Dev, World Cup winning captain for India. When I played my first series against Pakistan, he said, it did look like a war. In our time, we were expected more to harm the Pakistani players than win a match. I mean, it's pretty physical, that, isn't it?
It is.
Kapil Dev could bowl a bit, couldn't he?
Of course, but it's an interesting comment, particularly the fact that we probably had more fast bowlers than probably what India did at the time.
Yes.
But I think it just reiterates the importance of whether we're playing a bilateral series or in an ICC competition, that there's so much riding on this game. It does end up being more than just the game.
Yes. Just how physical can it get out there, do you think, though? I mean, there's Kapil Dev talking effectively about trying to injure opposing players. A lot of sledging, no doubt, as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I would suspect the context is more about, trying to play as hard as possible. And the armoury of the fast bowler is the bouncer a lot of the time. And trying to do that to unsettle the batsman. So I would suspect that a lot of his views are based on what normal fast bowlers are like, and that is to do whatever they can to get the edge on batsmen.
Yes, okay. We've also ought to mention a quote from your Prime Minister, Imran Khan. Cricket's a pressure game, and when it comes to an India-Pakistan match, the pressure is doubled. So there's a psychological element to it, of course, as well.
Definitely, and then if you look at what's gone on over the previous World Cups, for example, or ICC tournaments, India had the rub of the green, and it was interesting reading a quote from Virat Kohli not long ago where he spoke about the fact that we just treat it as another game, and where perhaps we fall a little bit is the fact that we still place that same level of pressure on ourselves to win that game because we know it means so much, and perhaps we can take a leaf out of their book. But the Champions Trophy win 2 years ago, the Pakistan players will take heart from that, no doubt, and be ready for when we play them on the 16th of June.
The thing is, of course, that there is a wider political context here, isn't there? It's a sports fixture which is deeply political. Only 6 months or so ago, 4 months ago, in fact, there were calls for this upcoming World Game to be called off after military confrontations between Pakistan and India, and the terrorist attack in Kashmir, which left 40 Indian soldiers dead. Was there a possibility, do you think, that this game might have been called off within the World Cup context?
I think that from our side, no. I think that, for us it was massively important to continue playing. We massively believe as a PCB that, the cricket can actually bridge many gaps. It can be there, as a way of actually bringing countries together rather than dividing them. So for us, it was never in doubt about whether we were going to play India or not. I think there were perhaps some reservations from the Indian side, with perhaps a lot of emotions running raw after what happened and what took place.
Understandably enough.
Understandably, but from our point of view, for us, cricket, as we've always seen, as being sort of quite having very much a healing power. And we wanted to always play India. We always want to continue to play India.
So you believe in cricket diplomacy, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you?
Yeah,
But the evidence is, I mean, I've got another quote for you.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw these quotes at you.
Yeah.
But it's from the Indian Sports Minister, Vijay Goel, who said that India would not play Pakistan in a bilateral series while cross-border terror from Pakistan remains. Terror and sports cannot go hand in hand, he said.
Absolutely, and you know, who would argue with that? You know, for us though, I think that as a country that's been starved of cricket for a very, very long time, and knowing what cricket means to both nations, we genuinely believe that cricket has so much to offer and so much to in terms of bringing countries together. I mean, the players actually get on very well with each other.
But it's all very well believing that, but where are the tangible results?
Well, look, in terms of that, I mean, every time the countries have played against each other, I think that it's proven that, you know, the whole world's been watching, and it's been a great spectacle for the game. So if you're looking for tangible results, you can just see the passion, the energy, and what it means to both nations when we play against each other. It's sport at its finest. You know, whenever you see some great rivalries, Pakistan and India, I would defy anyone to say there's a greater rivalry than Pakistan and India when we actually play cricket.
They say it's more than the Ashes, really.
Yeah, look, and again, if you know, a billion people in India and the diaspora around the world, same with the Pakistani fans, it means so much more. And because of the historical context, it's one way of I guess each nation coming together in sort of an act of some type of competition where it also encompasses the passion of the nation. And I think that cricket means so much to both sets of fans and countries. It's a main sport in both countries.
Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Imran Khan, former great all-rounder for Pakistan, now the country's Prime Minister. It's hard to believe that he doesn't have some kind of influence on the policies of the Pakistan Cricket Board.
Yeah, look, the Prime Minister historically has been a patron of the Cricket Board. But in terms of running the day-to-day elements of cricket within the country, he, of course, has an opinion.
Does he interfere?
Not at all, but you'd expect him to have an opinion.
Yes.
You know, because he's coming from a position of you know, he can come with informed ideas because he knows the game inside out, and it's quite nice perhaps bouncing things off him. But ultimately, he'll say, look, it's up to you guys to take in the direction you want to go.
How comfortable will you be actually watching this game?
It's
because the fallout from it, one way or the other,
Yeah.
will almost effectively, will almost certainly land on your desk in many ways.
It's a highly pressurised game. A lot of the time, what we try and move away from is that it's the be-all and end-all, but you can't get away from the fact that, you know, supporters across both countries will be glued to their TV sets. This is what matters most. But in terms of landing on our desk, I mean, what's more important for me right now is to make sure we have a really good World Cup campaign. And we go into the India game having a chance for actually qualifying for the semi-finals, because the bigger picture for all of us, everything else will be forgotten if we can lift the World Cup.
And what would that mean to your country?
It would be incredible. You know, particularly lifting the Champions Trophy 2 years ago, when nobody really thought we had a chance, and to come really strong at the end. I think that it would have a huge boost to the self-esteem of the nation more than anything.
What's that record though against India?
Yeah, records have to be broken at some stage. You can argue that we...
Just remind us.
I don't think we won in God knows how long, I'm sure you'll tell me. But
it's 6-0, isn't it?
Is it 6-0?
One day, isn't
yeah.
it?
Our argument would probably be that we won the final, so we'd probably accept that any day of the week.
It's difficult to imagine, though, you sitting there just enjoying the moment.
Yeah, look, Rob, there's a huge amount of pressure, and I think what I've realised in my 4 months in Pakistan already is that you know, every night there's cricket talk shows on. Cricket and politics are the two things that run pretty much that everybody's interested in the country. So everything has an impact and an effect on the people within the country, which ultimately then has an impact on me. So I've gone from a culture and environment in England to now being situated in Pakistan, where it's all consuming every single day.
And what in the near future will consume you, in fact it's already been consuming you, is this difficulty that Pakistan faces in attracting test tours back to your country.
Yeah.
Up to now you've had occasional white ball matches, haven't you? But no test cricket since the terrorist attack in 2009 on the Sri Lankan bus. Yeah. Give us an update. How are you getting on?
Yeah, look, we had the Pakistan Super League. We brought 8 games back this year to Pakistan. You know, we get presidential... From the UAE. And we have presidential style security, which is all set up for players who are there. You know, for us, you know, the security reports have been very good, so we've got an independent consultant who works with us. who actually provides reports to the other countries, who's well recognised by the Federation of Cricket Associations, so all the players' associations around the world. The same consultant is employed by other cricket nations as well to look at security. So, the reports have been very, very positive. Over the last few years.
What about the reports in the media? Reports, for example, that you've made an offer to Sri Lanka, that South Africa also are a strong possibility for next year, and of course, in the mid-term, it's all about England and Australia, isn't it, really? So give us a progress report specifically on which countries now are likely to be engaged in test match tours in Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of breaking it down, Rob, I mean, we've got Sri Lanka touring, potentially touring Pakistan in September, October. That's a home series for us.
So these are not UAE fixtures,
no,
these are in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, so they're still deemed to be home series because we've played all our home games in the UAE. But we've already started the dialogue, and we'll up the ante in terms of that dialogue with the Sri Lanka Cricket Board straight after the World Cup. What the normal protocol is that you invite the other nations and their security managers to come over, have a look at what the security plans are, what reassurances we can provide them. That will certainly be the step that we'll take. We don't want to look too far ahead because for us...
Well, that will need to go well, won't it?
Absolutely. And then we've got our home series against Bangladesh in January. So before we can start thinking in the future about Australia and England, we need to get these things right first.
And South Africa?
South Africa similarly as well. I think there's a strong support from them and the other nations of trying to help us bring cricket back to the country. But the only way we can deal with this is just take small steps, and Sri Lanka for us is the next step.
I understand that, but there's a perception issue, isn't there? People still think of Pakistan as a hostile place, especially to foreigners from the Western world.
Yeah. Can
you correct that? How difficult is it to correct that?
Yeah, look,
or is it inaccurate? Is it accurate?
I would say it's inaccurate. If you look at the levels of incidents in major cities across Pakistan over the last 2 years, for example, very, very minimal. A lot of the issues are actually confined to certain parts, Kashmir in the northwest frontier sort of area. But actually the other major cities have been incident-free now for quite a period of time. The security reports have been good. Things have settled down a huge amount. But the perception remains because we've got no margin for error. So when an incident takes place anywhere, it straight away is, well, this could happen in a major city. So therefore we're constantly fighting that perception, but having lived there for 4 months now. And look, people could argue, they might say, well, look, there's a bigger threat for white Westerners than what there is for yourself because your origins are from Pakistan. But, I've been at airports in Islamabad, Karachi, Lahore, and you've got white backpackers everywhere. And you speak to them, and I make an effort to go and speak to these Germans and Australians, and men and women have been travelling around Pakistan incident-free. They've loved their time there. They're blogging about it. So, there is a huge perception, but hence why I said it's about baby steps for us. There's no point in us thinking 3 years' time of England, Australia. We've got to get everything right now. We've got to host successfully. We've got to persuade them to come first, take that step, show what we can actually do. The plan is to bring the whole of the PSL back to Pakistan in February of next year. Yes. And the acid test for us will be how many of the Western sort of nations, in terms of their players, are willing to come for an extended period of time.
And it should be said, of course, that a number of English players have already played in the PSL, haven't they? I mean, Owen Morgan included.
Yeah, we had 14 players involved from English players, and of which I think about 4 or 5 then came to Pakistan. But for us, it's just making sure that we can convince them to come and then provide everything that we can around our security. The challenge for us is always trying to give them enough normality so they don't feel like they're confined within hotels.
And there's also a challenge, isn't there, in telling officials from other boards that there is actually something in it for them. What can you offer them? What's the bonus for them in coming to play cricket in Pakistan?
I think the bigger thing is more about why it's important to try and get cricket into Pakistan, because I think everyone is brought into the idea that trying to get cricket back into the country is critical in terms of Pakistan standing in the world game. If we don't have role models and we don't have cricket taking place in those countries, we're not going to produce the players that we are, and we're going to become weaker as a nation in terms of international cricket. So, I would flip that around and say that actually everyone's bought into the fact that they want to do everything they can to support us to bring cricket back. Our job is now to convince them to take those baby steps, make sure all those processes are right, so we can get the first nation back and then follow it up with Bangladesh and start to look to the future.
And your government is on side with all this?
Absolutely. And, with the Prime Minister, who obviously sees cricket as being critical to the mood and the health of the nation because it matters so much, we know what it means to him. He's been fighting the cause for many a year in terms of trying to get cricket coming back. And he's fully behind us in terms of the PCB, in terms of what we're trying to do.
We've been talking about image. Of course, Pakistani cricket also has an image problem in terms of corruption. There was the incident, wasn't there, in England 9 years ago, resulted in the imprisonment of 3 players, the captain of the Pakistan team, Salman Butt included, for conspiracy charges relating to spot fixing. How confident are you that Pakistani cricket is now clean?
I think the bigger question would be, how confident are we that cricket's clean? Because there's been major issues that have gone on. We're not devolving any responsibility. We need to keep our own house in order. And what we've done
but the focus has been on Pakistan corruption in the past, hasn't it?
It has been, but it probably has had a greater focus on Pakistan because there've been, always rumours around in terms of, Pakistan cricket and what's gone on. But, in terms of our anti-corruption programmes and our education, we have made sure that we've now been able to embed that at a lower level in terms of our academy programmes, because it's critical that we start to educate them about the choices they make when they step up. What we don't want to do is get these guys playing international cricket and then they start thinking about the choices they're going to have to make. They need to understand the consequences.
Yeah, but don't you have to pay your players more in order to allow them to resist temptation?
Well, actually, the central contracts now are higher than what they've ever been.
Are they?
So we've increased.
How do they
the
rate amongst international?
I think that it's a bit like apples and pears a little bit, because a lot relies on broadcasting money, for example, and money that we're able to bring in, and not having home series has an impact on our coffers in terms of the money that we can come in. Relatively, I think we pay pretty well. We've increased the money. There's been no complaints from players, which always is a good sign. And we pay good bonuses, and we pay the match fees and everything else on top. But that's all we can do, is keep trying to improve that.
But if your players were allowed to play in the IPL, then they'd be able to earn a lot more money, wouldn't they?
They would do, and hence why we need to constantly look at how much we pay these guys. More importantly,
but don't you need them to? You need your government to allow them to play in the IPL.
It's actually the other government. It's actually the BCCI or the Indian government,
yes,
in terms of visas, etc., which creates. We're open to that. As we've said, that we've got no issues about touring India touring us. But it's actually restrictions that are placed for Pakistani players. But from a cricketing perspective, Rob, that there's a bigger issue, and the bigger issue is that the IPL is a fantastic tournament. And you can see how the likes of Joss Buttler and Owen Morgan, how their cricket's improved massively from being involved in these high-pressured tournaments. Our players are missing out on that in terms of working under and playing under that type of pressure, playing against the world's best. What we're trying to do with the PSL is trying to recreate that as much as possible. So we've seen already with Mohamed Hasnain, who's got selected for this tour. He's come through our academy system, but he was given the platform to perform in the PSL, and now he's been picked up and selected for the World Cup squad.
Here we are in the middle of the World Cup. What's your view about corruption within the World Cup itself? I mean, are you confident that would be relatively clear? Or?
Yeah, look, the ICC have taken massive steps in terms of working with each of the nations. They're looking at all the different possible avenues for corruptors potentially to come in and actually and work within the World Cup. But I think that what's happened now is the intelligence that the ICC now have, working with all the other nations, has massively increased and got better, and everybody's working more collaboratively to identify potential perpetrators, so that we can actually single them out and make sure that they're actually monitored. But I'm pretty confident the ICC will be as risk-free as possible than any other tournament's ever been in terms of ICC.
Let's then, as we draw to the close of this interview, let's summarise your major tasks. Are you on a sort of legacy mission, do you think? I mean, you have a 3-year contract, you're 6 months or so into it. It's not very long, is it, in which to actually build something permanent and long-term? Yeah, look,
there's probably 2 or 3 key areas for me. One is to try and streamline the PCB.
Because it's cumbersome and...
Yeah, there's, currently we fund 8 of the international grounds that are running. We've got no international cricket running. So you've got the groundsmen, you've got the coaches, etc. So there's a big outlay for the PCB. So just trying to streamline and become more efficient with that in terms of having a very clear strategy. So there was no strategy in place. So we're looking at a very clear 5-year strategy of where we want to go.
I'm sure a lot of vested interests in there. You're going to make some enemies, aren't you?
Well, I think that there always is going to be. I think that, we know there's been well documented around corruption and various other things existing within main parts of society within Pakistan, which I know the Prime Minister's spoken about. We're trying to eradicate that within cricket and make sure
How do you root that out, though?
I think all you can do is try and stay focused on what it is that you want to do. And if you do that, naturally, the people who resist the most, they're the ones that perhaps are the ones who are going to be most resistant. we've got to try and remove them and move them out of the way so that we can actually progress forward and move Pakistan cricket forward, which is the reason why I'm here. So there's been a lot of noise over the last few months about me coming in. And in many ways I've been viewed as a bit of a foreigner because I'm a British-born Pakistani. But I've come in pretty focused. There's been a lot of media attention on me, which has been quite relentless.
Media opposition?
Yeah, it's been pretty relentless, but people with their pretty relentless. A lot of people with their own agendas who have tried to pursue the fact that I've come in from the outside. But I've come in very focused and very driven about what needs to get done, and perhaps that's the issue.
Have you got a thick skin?
I've developed one since I've been there. Every night has 2 cricket talk shows, and constantly, you'll be brushing your teeth and you hear your name mentioned. And there'll be something pretty derogatory, but so I kind of ignore all of that.
You consulted your lawyers, yeah?
I'm not sure how things work, but look, for me, it's the reason why people have got issues is because change is happening.
Yes.
And normally the resistance is probably more there than there is anywhere else. So I'm pretty comfortable in terms of where we're trying to go.
Okay. What does cricket mean to Pakistan? I mean, we've sort of touched on that already, but I mean, that would be part of the thought that shapes whatever it is you want to achieve as managing director.
Yeah, look, everywhere I go, the one thing that supporters, whether you're at airports or wherever, come up and talk to you about is we need to get cricket back. We need to get cricket back. So it has an impact on a number of levels. It has it from a grassroots perspective. We know in terms of the ECB and the programmes they run here that having role models that young kids can aspire to, men and women, has a huge impact in terms of participation, kids who want to then go on, be inspired to then go on and want to play. So we could end up losing generations because we don't have role models who are within the country. Kids can go along to international venues in our country and watch players play. So from that perspective, it's critical. From the older generation who've grown up watching cricket, at tough times in terms of economics within the country. It's a tough time in terms of the economy, and where Imran is trying to take things, it's going to take time to bed things down. But in the meantime, you always need things that are going to make people feel good about themselves. At the moment, the glue to the TV sets when we're playing the UAE, it's demoralising for players to play in front of one man and a dog in front of UAE stadiums. It's demoralising for fans to be sitting a couple of thousand miles away whilst their heroes are playing in empty stadiums. So getting that back, I think, we know from the PSL where we had 40-odd thousand people turn up every day in Karachi, that, there'll be thousands standing outside, we'll fill stadiums for test matches. So we need to keep focusing on that, and I think because the health of the nation is dependent on cricket as much as anything because of how important and how much it means to people.
Yes, well, we started with a quote. I'm going to finish with a quote. It's from the sports journalist Mihir Bose. He wrote, "Cricket is played by the army and the Taliban. It's enjoyed by all of Pakistan's sects and religions. It's part of Pakistan's history and also its future." That rather sums it all up, doesn't it?
It does, totally. And not only that, but also the importance of women's cricket. So we've now really started to build up women's cricket. We've got a fantastic women's selection panel now led by a lady called Arooj Mumtaz, who used to play for Pakistan. And so now what we've done is, because the importance of the women's side is very important in terms of the reflection it has on society, in terms of valuing women within Pakistan's society. And the better that the women do, the more role models we can create, the more girls we can get to aspire and also be inspired by the women playing. So one of our big goals is try and raise the profile of the women's game within the country as well.
You're comfortable there won't be resistance to that?
If there is, it doesn't bother me, because a lot of that time it will be cultural, if there is, but it will be only certain sects. Pakistan is a very thriving, modern sort of nation in terms of its young people. I think there was a stat that something like 70% of its population is under the age of 30. So it's very vibrant, huge cafe restaurant culture. People want to see change. People want to see more equality. And so therefore, our women's game and our women's cricketers actually can lead the way in that. And that's certainly one of our goals.
Wasim Khan, thank you very much for joining us on Extra Time. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very good.